Well, hello again there, Woman in Worth family, and welcome back to this, my channel. We've been discussing this idea of, are we waiting on God or is God waiting on us? My name is Mitzi, and I equip Christian women with kingdom strategy so they can stop settling and start soaring. So if this is something you think you would like, please go ahead, hit the subscribe button, hit a like, comment, give me a comment, share with someone that you think can benefit from this. Now, I'll drop this video down below where I looked at the story of Moses and whether or not it was God who sent Moses in the wilderness. You can go and check that out, and that will I will answer the question over there. But I want to have a little bit of a different focus today, because sometimes when we have missed moments, it can place us in despondency, discouragement, and I want to encourage you this morning. I want to encourage you. I want you to say to yourself, I want you to be real with yourself. I might have missed this turn. I might have missed this season. I might have missed this moment, but God still can. It's not an excuse to miss the turn. It's not an excuse to say, because God is going to come through, I can go ahead and make the wrong turn. No. God can redeem every wrong turn, but redemption does not replace intention, what God intended for our lives. But I want to show you sometimes when we have taken a much longer waiting period, how God can use the moment, okay? Now, I call this is the Mitzi version, I call this, Moses had to go through what I call a 40-year deconstruction period. He had to go through a period of deconstruction. See, when we're in the waiting season, God does some things to us. He will remove some of the mindset and the programming that we have. See, Moses was in the palace, and so he would have had a palace diet. He might have, I don't know what they're eating at that time, I don't want to guess, okay? But he would have had a diet. He would have had a look. He would have had a certain dress code. Now, watch the changes that happen throughout. So Moses is now in the wilderness. He went through the wilderness, and now he's in Midian, a different country, right? And the first thing, I'm going to give you 3 C's that Moses had to go through before he entered that calling. See, sometimes we have this massive calling on our life, this great calling on our lives, and we want to step into it immediately. And we get so passionate about doing the things of God that we miss a turn. But God will use that turn to reconstruct the man or the woman that we are becoming so we can step into purpose seamlessly, okay? So the first thing I am suggesting that Moses had to do, he had to confront his mindset. There had to be a confrontation of mindset. Now, if you're from the Caribbean, you might have heard this statement. You can take the man out of the island, but you cannot take the island out of the man. And what that is saying is, up to 40 years, Moses had a certain mindset. Moses was doing certain things. He was raised in Pharaoh's household. He had education. He had status. He had access. He had influence. But the next 40 years taught him something completely different that he would need to go into the next season. Because he was almost alone. Yes, he had a family, but he knew that God still had this call on his life. The next 40 years taught him something else. The next 40 years taught him how to surrender to God. It taught him how to listen to God. It taught him how to depend on God. It taught him how to walk with God. Okay? So Moses had to confront those things, because let me share something with you. Sometimes God will either take us out of the environment so we can confront our spirits. He has to take us out of that place so we could see how we're doing things. We could see that this is not appropriate. For example, let me give you a good example. There's a story in the Bible, Genesis 15. Genesis 15. Let's just find that, yeah? Genesis 15. This is the story where God has come to Abraham and he's visiting him in a vision, and he's telling him about the covenant that he has with Abram. And he said, and after this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. And it says, do not be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, you have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Watch this. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. Next verse. He took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. Wherever Abram was, there are scholars who believe that he was in the tent. I would say that, but the Bible doesn't say that. Let's say he was in a tent. God had to take him outside. You see, because sometimes your environment is restrictive to your vision. You can't see certain things. You can't understand certain things. You can't even see yourself and understand what is impeding you from moving into the next journey, next part of the journey. So I am saying God, where Moses had now come out of that environment, God was using this as an opportunity to take the environment out of him. He had physically left the environment, but God had to take the ways and dealings of the palace. Because remember, the palace is a place of control. Remember, they were beating slaves. They were telling them what to do, how to do it. So that was an environment of control. So the first thing before we can step into our calling, is confrontation. Confrontation of our spirits, confrontation of our environment, confrontation of our mindsets. The next thing that God has to do before we can step into calling is that he needs to take us through a period of conversion. He has to take us from a conversion of the flesh into the spirit. See, when Moses was taking the children of Israel through this journey later on in Exodus, he said, unless your presence goes with me, I shall not go. We didn't see that from the Moses who decided that he was just going to kill this man. We didn't see that from Moses. This Moses, after he's gone through this wilderness process, is a Moses who said, God, unless you come with me, I can't do this. Total reliance. So we see self-reliance being replaced by God reliance in this season. We see a transformation of the heart and of the mind. And some of us want to step into calling without transformation. It's not going to happen. Okay? Moses had to unlearn how to be a prince who takes what he wants and learn how to be a shepherd. And so we see the sword that he used to kill the man being replaced by the staff who now cares for a people who he has been given to take care of, right? We see Moses' strength. He felt like I was big and strong to kill this man, being replaced by surrender, okay? See, in Egypt, he carried the scepter of authority, but now he carried the staff of care. Yes? So whenever this conversion happens, it's going to be internal, but it's going to be able to express itself externally as well. So Moses had to go through this period where he had to listen to God. He had to learn the ways of God all over again. He had to understand what God wanted him to do, right? Because Moses' story reminds us that waiting is never simply about passing of time, but it's about the shaping of the purpose. The palace prepared Moses to stand with Pharaoh, but the wilderness prepared Moses to stand before God so he could withstand Pharaoh. And see, sometimes God will take us out of the place that seemed to be the strong place, the palace with all these guards and so on, and strip us of what seems to be strength so we could place our strength in him. And the last thing that God had to give Moses before he could step into that calling was capacity. Capacity to become a different person. Capacity to dream a different dream. Capacity to believe that God is able to do what he says he can do. For us, it is the capacity that regardless of what we are confronting, that he's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think, but it is according to the power that is at work in us. How do we exercise that power? Become converted by the things of God, to the things of God. Become transformed by the renewing of our minds. Become transformed in our spirits, in our minds, and in our bodies. So the challenge for Moses was not the calling. It was the process of going through the confrontation of his mindset, the confrontation of his spirit, the confrontation of allowing his flesh to become subjected to his spirit so he can step into his calling. So if you're in that waiting season, be aware that it could be a season where God is challenging your character. Challenging your character, where he's looking at the confrontation of your mind and your spirit, where he's allowing you to confront these things, where he's challenging you to look at what you are depending on. What is it you consider to be the strength? Is it the thing around us? Is it our status as lawyers and doctors and accountants? Or is it the strength to know that he who began a good work in us is able to complete it? Is it the strength of Almighty God, or are we depending on other things? And as we go through that, just know that it is, if God has called you, he will prepare you. But there has to be a process of confrontation. There has to be a process of conversion, and there has to be a process of building capacity to be able to maintain the calling. Because there are a lot of people, who step into their calling, but they simply don't have capacity for what God has for them. And God loves us so much that he will take us through these steps. So when we step into our calling, we have the capacity to sustain and to maintain us for the length and the breadth of this calling. So if you're waiting, be encouraged. God has not forgotten you. God is processing you. God is still preparing you. You might have made a wrong turn. You might have made a wrong decision. Confess that to God and say, Lord, will you now come in and instruct me? Will you come in now and lead me? Will you come in now and guide me? My heart is open, God, as I read your word. I thank you that I'm coming into the alignment of the things and the purposes of God. And so, Father, I just wait on you for the next instruction. I wait on you for the next turn so I don't miss out on my destiny. I speak a blessing over you today. May the Lord cover you, keep you, guide you, give you good success. And if you're in that waiting season, I pray he give you strategy from on high so that you can navigate these terrains that you might not be aware of. God bless you and have a wonderful day.